Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 3. Today we look at Dylan Hartley and what he's achieved throughout his rugby career, both domestic and international. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Right, welcome to episode 3 and the first of our player profile episodes. This week I'll be hosting the episode and we're talking Dylan Hartley. So I've done my research and I'm going to share it with Dan. Dan, hi.
Hi, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I've found out some interesting statistics, some interesting facts about Dylan Hartley. So we can I'll talk you through it all and we can have a little bit of a chat and see what you think.
I'm looking forward to hearing about him. I think he's, as players go, probably one of the most interesting ones, actually.
There's certainly a lot to talk about, isn't there? So I'll start at the beginning. Born 24th of March 1986, so he's 31. He was born to an English mum, Caroline, and a Kiwi dad, Guy. 2 brothers, Blair and Alex, fiancée Joanne, and they've got a daughter, Thea. He's a big guy, although perhaps not by rugby standards, 17.5 stone, 6'1". And of course he is our England captain. In that role, he has a Grand Slam, a Triple Crown, 2 Six Nations Championships, a 3-0 series whitewash in Australia, an unbeaten year in 2016, and a world record equalling 18-game win streak. He has 222 caps for Northampton, 22 tries. He's a Heineken Cup winner, a Champions Cup winner, and he's a Premiership champion. So not a bad-looking CV.
It's when you read it out like that. Actually, it's a very impressive CV. There's obviously a lot he's achieved. I mean, he wouldn't be where he is today without achieving that. But as you read it out, I must admit, I'm not surprised. Surprised, not fair. But I was like, wow, I forgot quite how much he has probably achieved throughout his career.
Well, that's it. When you put it all together, I mean, in fairness, a huge amount of that was actually in the last sort of 14, 15 months under Eddie Jones, which is quite impressive. But you know, it takes a lot to get to the point where you can be a part of that, and we'll obviously come on to that. So he was born in New Zealand, as I mentioned, in a little town called Kaharoa, which by all accounts is a pretty remote place even by New Zealand standards. He went to Rotorua Boys High School. Notable rugby alumni from there include Tiamana Harrison, who's obviously his Northampton and England teammate, Mike Delaney and Tom Donnelly, both All Blacks. I think Mike plays for Newcastle Falcons and Tom is with Montpellier. Liam Messam, who's obviously the All Black, bit of a sevens specialist. He was the sevens captain in 2004. But he was also part of the New Zealand World Cup squad in 2015 that came over here. He's also the most capped player ever for the Waikato Chiefs. So yeah, few big names there. 2002, after graduating, he made the decision to move over to the UK. Family in a little place in Sussex called Crowe, where he joined the Beacon Rugby Academy. Through them, he progressed on to represent Sussex and then England schoolboys.
I'd be disrespecting my roots here if I didn't mention Crowe Brokers. It's actually very near to where I grew up. Nice area. I don't think I'm doing the place a disservice by saying not necessarily a rugby hotspot, but the Beacon Rugby Academy, I suspect, is what probably helped catapult him onto what he achieved before. But the part that's interesting here for me, actually, rather than necessarily sort of boring everyone about Crowe, is the fact that he made that decision to come to England. And from what I understand, you'll know better than me here, Andy, but from what I understand, that was his sort of decision, but he actually wanted to represent England, and that was always his plan. Am I fair in saying that?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think he made a decision from what I've read. He made a decision early on that first and foremost he wanted a career in rugby, which obviously he could have had in New Zealand, but he wanted to be in England because that's where his family was from, and because of that he wanted to represent England and that was his ultimate goal. And yeah, his move. He actually met with the Crowe Rugby Club. I think we're on tour near his hometown. He actually met with them and had a bit of a chat with them and came up with this plan to move over there off the back of that, and went and lived with his uncle and aunt. And yeah, the rest, as they say, is history. So he joined the Worcester Academy in 2004, 2005. Had 14 senior appearances for them, scored a try. He then joined the Northampton Saints Academy that summer. Northampton were promptly relegated, but they won the EDF Energy Trophy the following year, and so they were promoted back into the Premiership. They won the European Champions Cup, and then in 2009 he became the youngest Premiership captain at just 23, replacing All Black Bruce Rayana. They made the Heineken Cup final in 2011, which unfortunately they lost. The Premiership final in 2013, which again they lost, but in 2014 they won the Premiership final and the European Challenge Cup, so a pretty good year. He then went on to extend his contract with Northampton, despite a much more lucrative offer from Montpellier, claiming that he wanted to remain eligible for England, and he wanted to play for this club that he'd been with for some time by this stage. So.
That's quite interesting, actually. So firstly, I must admit, I didn't realise he'd been at Worcester before, but I guess that was academy. Like you said, he'd made some. I can't remember what he said, but he made some senior appearances.
14 or something.
14.
So it's not a bad number of appearances, actually, is it?
No, not at all. I think that's very respectable, but it was academy. But then Saints, whenever he joined, I think he said 2005. So he has effectively been a career player, realistically, a career sort of professional with them, which is great. When he extended in 2014, as you said, he extended his contract, which to me is quite interesting because actually at that time he wasn't a guaranteed England player. I mean, you wouldn't have said that he would be guaranteed however many more caps he's got since then. So that was clearly a bit of a gamble, especially with more lucrative offers coming in. So I give a man respect for that.
Absolutely, and it goes back to what we were saying, about the guy had a plan, didn't he? He this was his ultimate goal, and he knew that by leaving, especially going over to France, then that was no longer an option for him. So clearly, he made a call that wasn't motivated by the money, but was motivated by the potential to do more in his career. And clearly, it was a good call based on where things have gone since then.
Yeah, he doesn't strike me as a quitter, to be fair.
That's probably quite a good place to start talking about his international career, which began in 2004 for the under-18s. In 2005, he represented the under-20s, or the 21s as they may have been back then, in the Junior World Championships. And he had his Saxons debut in 2007. His first senior cap was, I think, 2008, and that was against the Pacific Islanders. And his first senior start, because he came off the bench against the Islanders, the first start was 2009 against Argentina. First try against New Zealand, which was at Twickenham in 2010. He came off the bench and he scored a try within 3 minutes, and it also was his 20th cap, so probably quite a good day. Not sure his dad would have been, well, probably mixed opinions from his dad, but...
Yeah, it must have been an interesting day for the family with obviously his old man, a Kiwi and All Black. But I wonder who his dad supports. He must support his son. I guess he must be an England fan in those matches. But it must be tough for him. I feel for you, Mr. Hartley Senior.
Yeah, if you're listening. Yeah, so 20th cap was against New Zealand, 50th cap was against New Zealand, and looking at the schedule, there's no way to guarantee it, but the 100th cap could feasibly be against New Zealand in 2018. So that would be bizarre, but anyway, yeah, weird fun fact for you there. He first captained England in 2012. Obviously, this wasn't an official appointment, but Chris Robshaw was out injured. Dylan stepped in, 14-all draw against South Africa. And his first man of the match performance was in 2013, again against Argentina. So he clearly has a habit of performing against Argentina.
Firstly, great research, mate. You've got some good stuff down here. A lot of this, I must admit, a lot of it.
Setting the bar.
Yeah, you certainly have, because I know I I need to lead the next one. But no, there's a lot of stuff here. Actually, I didn't know. I thought I was fairly well read on Dylan Hartley, but actually, I'm not, as it turns out. His career has been definitely progressive, from what you've said. Which, bearing in mind, as we know, there's been ups and downs in it. Is quite surprising. His international career, as goes on, his first cap was a lot earlier than I thought. I didn't realise it was as early as 2008 for his first senior cap. And since then, he's obviously moved on. So he's been sort of 8-9 years now within the England setup.
Yeah, he's been involved for some time, hasn't he?
Yeah. So I think that helps maybe put it in perspective, because I don't see him as one of the junior players, one of the young players, not at all. And I'm not suggesting that, but I had no idea that he was perhaps as sort of as senior and as advanced as that. I don't know how many of the England players will have actually got their caps earlier than him. I can't think of any that, off the top of my head, I can't think of any that might have. Dan Cole, maybe.
Yeah, James Haskell.
Yeah, Haskell might have, actually, in fairness.
Just in terms of number of caps, he's kind of up there as well, isn't he? But I mean, Dylan Hart, he's got 84 caps for England, so I think he is the most capped player. So he probably is. He probably did start before anyone else there. But yeah, I would think Cole, Haskell, possibly get in there around the same sort of time.
Yeah, maybe Tom Wood was up there. I'm speculating here, but yeah, no, that's true. Actually, he is definitely one of the most senior from longevity, from caps, from all perspectives. So,
well, I mean, he is the most capped England hooker in history.
And he's not short of strong company there when you look at the likes of Steve Thompson, Brian Moore.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Even the likes of Greening and that lot. We've had some good hookers, so he's, that's a really big achievement in itself.
Well, talking of big achievements, I think that his biggest, as far as his international career is concerned, was obviously following his appointment as the England captain when Eddie Jones took over at the beginning of 2016. I mentioned it at the beginning, but I feel I have to mention it again. He won the Grand Slam. That was the first Grand Slam in 13 years. They did a whitewash of Australia, 3-0. England had never even won a series in Australia, let alone a 3-0 drubbing. I think Australia have only ever been whitewashed once prior to that, and it was in the 70s by South Africa. As I mentioned, it was in that series that he became the most capped England hooker of all time. They went on to have a clean sweep in the Autumn International Series, which included another win against Australia, so 4 in as many months. And that was, that ultimately culminated in an unbeaten 2016, which is a hell of an achievement. As we know, the 2017 Six Nations has just finished, but within that they had 4 straight wins, which took the total to 18 straight wins, a world record equaling number of wins, joining the All Blacks. And in the game against Scotland, they had a record equaling 40-point margin, and they put a record 61 points on them. So certainly within the last 14 months, his 84 caps and his 2 tries have really kind of culminated in a hell of a last 14 months and a hell of a kind of captaincy career, because all of this has happened since he was made captain.
Any way you look at that, that's really impressive. I wonder when was the last time that England had a perfect year, and I mean perfect year as in won every game, because even in 2003, I know in one of the warm-up games against France, fair enough, we put out a second-string team, but we still lost, whereas in 2016, obviously, we didn't lose a game. I wonder when was the last time that happened, if at all, and I'm genuinely wondering. I have no idea. It may never have happened before, but it shows the level of achievement that he's had since taking over as England captain.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not aware of any other ones, but it's difficult to find out. It's the sort of thing you put into Google, and everything is about this. The 2016 perfect year, but including the perfect year episode that we did in our last episode.
Yeah, exactly. I take back my comment about your brilliant research. You don't have the answer to my question.
I'll have it next time.
well, please do. Let me down here.
I will be sure to do that. Speaking of ill discipline, let's talk about his ill discipline.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is obviously a bit of an elephant in the room. A lot of people fully aware that Dylan Hartley is well known for his disciplinary issues. It was a sort of an area that was heavily covered in the media when it was announced that he was going to be the New England captain. A lot of people asking questions of him and of the decision. And here is why. 2007, 26-week ban for eye gouging. Incidentally, that was James Haskell. In 2012, 8 weeks for biting and a further 2 weeks for punching Rory Best, the Ireland captain. In 2013, he got 11 weeks for calling Wayne Barnes an effing cheat. In 2014, 3 weeks for elbowing somebody in the face. And in 2015, 4 weeks for headbutting. I think that was Jamie George that he was headbutting. And then finally in 2016, post-England captaincy, which was a shame, he got another 6 weeks, and that was for a swinging arm on Sean O'Brien. So 60 weeks in total he's spent off the pitch because of bans, because of disciplinary issues, which isn't ideal.
It's too much, isn't it? It is too much.
Well, over a 10-year career, it's an average of 6 weeks a year. It's about 15% of a professional career. It is an awful lot of time. But he's still the most capped England hooker of all time, and he's still going. So,
yeah, how many more caps would he have been on without that, I wonder?
So I don't know how many England caps he missed out on as a result of his bans. I know obviously an awful lot of domestic ones, but I don't know about the international caps.
Well, for a start, the headbutt, which was just before the 2015 World Cup, that obviously lost him his place at the World Cup. Well,
of course it did, yeah.
So there's caps there that he lost, and I mean, it's not even about caps. That's about missing a home World Cup. In fairness to Lancaster, I don't feel he had any choice. I feel you had to drop him for that.
Well, it was Lancaster's kind of ethos, wasn't it? It was this whole, you are a professional sportsman and you have a responsibility to act a certain way. I think Danny Kerr got dropped by Lancaster for misbehaving, didn't he? And Manu Tuolangi got dropped by Lancaster at one point for misbehaving. Or maybe Manu Tuolangi got away with it, actually.
well, I think when you're destroying defences like that...
Yeah, I think it was Cipriani that possibly got penalised for it.
Cipriani did, and he probably, his misdemeanour was probably the least of them all, in fairness. But yeah, like we said, I mean, Hartley missed the 2015 World Cup because of that discipline, and that's huge. And like we say, the person he missed out to was the person he headbutted. So
ironic.
Yeah, Jamie George. So that's ironic. And then actually, when we go back, when we're saying about calling Wayne Barnes an effing cheat,
2013.
Yeah, absolutely. He'd already been selected as a Lions tourist, and
yes, of course,
due to the ban, he missed out to Tom Youngs, who actually. So this is something I'll stick up for Dylan Hartley with. I believe Dylan Hartley when he says he was calling Tom Youngs an effing cheat. I've seen this actually reasonably recently, coincidentally, on YouTube, and to me, he was saying it to Tom Youngs. However, when you watch the clip, you see 5 minutes previously, Dylan Hartley had made a comment to what appeared to be an opposition player, but Wayne Barnes took him aside and said, "You can't speak to me like that. I'm not sure if it was aimed at me." And Dylan Hartley was like, "Sir, not at you at all." And Wayne Barnes is like, "Well, if you're saying it in my vicinity, I can perceive it as you saying it at me. So if you do that again, and I think it's aimed at me, I will react accordingly." And then it's 5 minutes later, when Wayne Barnes, just as Wayne Barnes gives a penalty, Dylan Hartley says, who I still believe is to Tom Youngs, "You effing cheat." But the timing in the vicinity, in my mind, Wayne Barnes had no option because he had given him that warning, even though I'm sure in Wayne Barnes' mind, he's like, I don't know he's speaking to me, but I have pre-warned him.
Yeah, maybe Wayne Barnes was thinking, I don't know if he's speaking to me, but I am cheating. So he might well be talking to me, and therefore he's off.
maybe, but I mean,
Wayne, if you're listening, that's not the opinion of this podcast. It's just a theory, one of many possible theories.
It could be happening. Wayne Barnes just on an anti-Dylan Hartley thing, but actually, Wayne Barnes, like, genuinely is a pretty sort of down the line type ref. He lays out things. He's fairly clear. I think Wayne Barnes probably knew in his head, but had laid out the law. This is how it has to be. This is rugby. This is not football, to quote Nigel Owens. Yeah. So you behave like that, you'll be punished. I have warned you. So I
like that. I like that about rugby.
Yeah, I love it.
We're not going to get into a whole thing about football, but I can't stand the way that the referees are spoken to in football. I think it's I really like the fact that in rugby you just don't do it, and the players just don't. When we say don't do it, Dylan Hartley maybe did, maybe didn't do it, but you see what happens. It wasn't just a card or something. He got 11-week ban for it. It's absolutely stamped out of the game, and the players know it's just not the done thing. So that's great. It's just respect.
It's absolutely respect, and the referees have that. I would urge people to sort of maybe YouTube Nigel Owens' sort of best moments, because just seeing the way he deals with the players and respect they have, I think probably sums up rugby perfectly. But again, like that's a massive digression, obviously, but. Also, I mean, it's something you and I have spoke about before, Andy, when we just say, actually, that's part of who the man is. Like, he plays on the edge. Yes, maybe sometimes he does go over it, but would you want to take away that part of him? I wouldn't. I want him to be that competitive, that confrontational, and I think that makes him the player he is.
Oh, I totally agree with you. Look, the guy's still going. He's a possible Lion. He's the most capped England hooker of all time. He's passionate, he's aggressive, and he clearly has longevity, and he's a quality rugby player. So I completely agree with you. It's in his DNA. It's part of who he is, and you want that. You want to keep that. You just want him to stay just on the correct side of that line.
Yeah, of course. Have we seen the end of his disciplinary issues? I don't know. I hope so, but I suspect there'll be other instances, but if they are, I'm sure they'll be dealt with appropriately at the time. But let's not finish on that, because Dylan Hartley is a huge asset to the England team. Will he still be about 2019 World Cup? He'll be 33 at the time. I think he might be. I don't think Eddie Jones would necessarily have invested this much time into him if he didn't think him playing a part. There are good hookers coming up. We know that. It's not about them today, but it's there, and it could be right for Dylan Hartley, whether he's playing a role as the first choice, whether he's playing a role as a support. He clearly offers something to that England team, and when you hear those interviews with the players, they always talk about how important he is on and off the pitch, and that's crucial. That's key. It's like Jono. Like, have you ever heard someone who played under Jono's captaincy ever slag him off? I mean, they just weren't there, because it was just 100% ultimate respect. Yeah. And I think Dylan's I mean, I don't know. He may be there now, but if he's not, I think he's close to it.
Certainly heading in the right direction. So yeah, no, we appreciate all you're doing, Dylan. Keep doing it.
Absolutely, please do.
Right. Well, I think that probably draws us to the end of this episode. I've gone through all my my notes. We've talked about the man. All that's left is for us to say thanks for listening. Please join us again, hopefully next week, when Dan will be discussing, I'm not sure who's next on our list, but someone else will be in the firing line, and we can discuss another one of England's top talents. So yeah, all that's left for me to say now is goodbye. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, goodbye, everyone. Thanks a lot.